Okay, so shall we start then? Thank you. Good morning to everyone. Thank you a lot for attending this third session of the Shallow Geothermal Days. And thank you very much to the EGEC team, particularly Regina and Philippe and the rest of the team for organizing this meeting and giving us, the research community, the chance to meet, to hear from each other and to know about the challenges, the priorities and opportunities in our sector, in our area of research. There will be three main interventions this morning. In the first session, around the question of the funding opportunities and which are the opportunities, the funding options, and which are the programs and the instruments and that are around to help us in our research. That will be Susanna Galloni, who will speak about this innovation fund and this new small-scale project opportunities from this fund. There will be also an intervention by Gary Gildrim about the Horizon 2020 programs and also from the past Horizon 2020 and beyond in the new framework of Horizon 20 Europe and what will be the landscape there. Myself, in the third part of this session, will present our research priorities from the perspective of the sector. That means from our own documents and so-called research roadmaps that we have been preparing in the last years. So I will give a brief overlook of what we have, let's say, found out as what could be or should be the research priorities. Then we will have a second part of the session, which will be more technical, more oriented, and there will be a special topic, the so-called life cycle analysis, in which quite a lot of research has been done in the last years to understand what are the challenges, the opportunities in the life cycle analysis of geothermal technologies, also in comparison with others. So this will be also around several European projects, like the ones that we'll present this morning in this perspective of the life cycle analysis. And this is an interesting opportunity also to have a dialogue between researchers of different EU-funded projects. So without any further remark, I will give the floor to Susanna to start with the presentation on the Innovation Fund and the second small-scale project. Susanna, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. I hope that you can all hear me and see me well. If that's not the case, please let me know before I talk for 15 minutes to myself. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you very much, Javier, for the introduction and for EGEC to inviting me to this event. My name is Susanna Galloni, and I'm a project manager in INER. And recently, INER has been delegated the implementation of a new program, the Innovation Fund. And I think this presentation is very timely because the call for small scale has just been published. So this is the moment when you should, if you are interested, start considering applying. Just a few words about INER. It is one of the executive agencies of the European Commission. There are 5 parent DGs. There is MOVE, ENER, ACTD, CONNECT, and CLIMA. We manage the CEF program. We manage the H2020 program for energy and transport. And as last June, we are also managing the Innovation Fund. The mandate of INER is to turn policy into action. We don't define the policy. This is up to the so-called parent DGs of the Commission, but we do implement programs. So the Innovation Fund, the objective of the program is to support the economy to reach the 2050 ambition to be climate neutral by 2050. In order to do that, we need to tackle fossil fuels related issues and manage emissions from the bioeconomy. We have technologies that are almost ready to reach the market, but in order to support these technologies to effectively be there and make their contribution with the long-term goal of 2050, this program support them. And we do that by by giving incentives to develop these technologies. There are 4 areas that are covered by the Innovation Fund. One is, of course, renewable energy, the production and the use of renewables. And then there is a large part that is dedicated to energy-intensive industries, because clearly they are the large emitters. And then there is carbon capture, carbon use, and storage. As in order to make the economy carbon neutral, we cannot avoid capturing and storing. And then there is energy storage, which is also important. And I think in your sector, what is an important aspect that is covered by the Innovation Fund is the electrification of heat, which is, and I believe will more contribute to the energy overall picture. The main features of the Innovation Fund, sorry, I was just trying to get rid of, sorry, my apologies. This is the first time I'm using GoToMeeting. Oh, there it is, sorry. So the main features of the Innovation Fund, the call volume is 100 million for this call. The Innovation Fund as a whole, for the 10 years when it is planned to run, is about 10 billion euros. The total budget will actually depend on the cost of the CO2 emissions in the emission trading schemes, because this is where basically the budget comes from. So for this call, there are 100 million euros. And there is also the opportunity for proposals that are not funded to go to the project development assistance. I will say something more about that in a second. The project size is more scale, as I said. So capex has to be less than 7.5 million, and the minimum grant is 2.5 million euros. The eligible sectors are the same as for the large scale and the ones that I've just mentioned. And the grant size will cover maximum 60% of the capex. So that's where the minimum 2.5, the maximum 2.5 million grant size comes from. And it is 60% of capex. It is a simplification compared to the large scale call, where we looked at the additional cost. For small scale, it is really about capex, the investment. Okay, so what Klima would like to achieve with the Innovation Fund is to reach the market. The applicants for the Innovation Fund must be very close to the market in order to, again, meet the ambition to clearly contribute to the economy very quickly. And in order to do that, the objective of Klima is to have applicants to team up with their customers, their clients, and eventually also include them in the project. There are a few examples in the slide, and also another example could be I don't know, a concrete producer that has developed a different product, which is of course emitting less GHG, and it is important that that product will reach the market, so that the applicant shows that there is already somebody in the construction sector, for example, that is ready to use that concrete in their applications. So this is where the concept of pioneer customers comes from, because as I said, it is important for the technologies to reach the market as soon as possible. And in order to prove that, the best possible way is to prove that there is already a customer for your product. So the Innovation Fund is very different from Horizon 2020. It is not a research program. As I said, the objective is to be very, very close to the market. The Innovation Fund is more similar to a private investor that wants to make the project succeed and bring the product to the market as soon as possible. And the final objective is, of course, to have zero or even negative emissions. But being like an investor, what the Innovation Fund needs is for the proposals to be technically, of course, and also financially feasible. The question that you should ask yourself if you're applying for the Innovation Fund is the project bankable? Would a private investor consider this project? Then the Innovation Fund is the right instrument for you. The other question you should ask yourselves is whether the project will only bring incremental innovation or a breakthrough. The Innovation Fund is not really interested in incremental innovation, even though we all understand that in certain sectors we cannot avoid incremental innovation. But the objective is to really have a breakthrough, something that will definitely support our economy to become climate neutral. And I think that I've discussed I will briefly discuss later the award criteria, but there are 5 for the small scale: the greenhouse gas emission avoidance, the degree of innovation, the project maturity, the scalability, and the cost efficiency. As I mentioned, the grant will cover up to 60% of the capex. In terms of grant disbursement, sorry, is the next slide, we will disburse up to 40% before financial close, and the remaining 60% over the 3-year minimum reporting period. 3-year can also be 10 years, but I have another slide later on. So about the award criteria, the greenhouse gas emissions avoidance, absolute and relative emissions. Of course, you have to be below the ETS benchmark and ensure biomass sustainability is not, if that's the case, maybe not really interesting for you. Innovation, you have to be beyond the state of the art. As I said, we're not really interested in incremental innovation. And we are looking for projects that are technically and financially mature. Then could be that they have a high degree of scalability, because if you're applying your excellent innovation that is really working, but only geographically in a very limited area, and in that limited area the contribution is not significant, then it is impossible that would make a real contribution to the European economy as a whole. So this is something that would not be considered as interesting for the Innovation Fund. And then it has to be cost efficient, of course. And for the greenhouse gas emissions and cost efficiency, for those of you that are familiar with the large scale coal, there are simplified methodologies because clearly the size of the coal. Here is the grant disbursement. Again, it's very different from Horizon 2020. As I mentioned, the Innovation Fund will disburse upfront 40% of the total. That can happen anytime between the start of the project, when the grant is awarded, and the financial close. And it is not 40% is not depending on the verified emission avoidance. What is dependent on that is the remaining 60%. So to get the 60%, you will have to demonstrate that indeed the project or the idea or the concept works. And there will be annual installments for 3 to 10 years to reach the 60% balance. In terms of the selection procedure, there is an initial assessment done by INER. We are managing the evaluation of the proposals. We are currently evaluating the large-scale proposals. We are using external experts, and we will select the best proposals. We will prepare a list that will then be sent to DG Clima that will consult the member states. And after this consultation, there will be the award of project grants or the award of project development assistance. Maybe it's worth mentioning what's project development assistance. It is supposed to be as a help, a support for those projects that are not quite there yet, but we, the experts and Clima, believe that they can make it. So projects that are not selected for grant because they don't meet certain requirements, but they do meet minimum requirements, can be supported by the European Investment Bank, not by INER, in the preparation for submitting again the proposal in the next call. So it's really an expert service that is provided by the European Investment Bank with their expertise, technical and financial expertise, that will support applicants. And for the small scale, there will be about 20 projects that will go to project development assistance. We cannot really say how many projects will be funded because, as I said, there is the total grant, the total budget, but we don't know the amount of money that each project will request. So we cannot say how many projects will be funded. In terms of the timeline, the call was launched on the 1st of December. There was a webinar on the 9th of December, which I invite you to follow. There is a link on my next slide to it. And there is in that webinar, there is an extensive session on the award criteria for you to understand them better. And then there will be more webinars in January, and the deadline for submission is the 10th of March. And we are aiming at signing the first grant agreements before the end of 2021. So just a request for all of you that are experts, very qualified experts that could work as evaluators for the Innovation Fund. We are looking for technical experts with expertise on life cycle assessment, experts on financial matters, legal experts, and experts on greenhouse gas emission calculations. As you might know, there is an individual phase of the evaluation. It's called remote phase, where you assess the proposals by yourself, alone, at home, or your office. And then there is a consensus phase where experts meet. In the past, it was physical meetings. We really hope that we will be able to go back to physical meetings soon, but for the time being, we have remote meetings, and the experts discuss the proposals, they reach consensus, and there is the final report which is prepared, and then the proposal is scored. Well, we do check conflict of interest. So clearly, if you are applying or if you're sending an application for a grant, you cannot evaluate the proposal, but that obvious. Finally, how to be informed. As I mentioned, there was a webinar. You'll see the link there, and it's also in the PDF of the presentation that I believe will be circulated. I really encourage you to follow it. You'll get a better perspective on the policy objectives that DG Clima has, and also on the technicalities of the preparation of the application and on the selection criteria. So I really encourage you to listen to the webinar. To find information, you can also check the INER webpage and the funding and tender portal. You have to submit your application via the portal. And finally, I invite you to follow us. There are different social media links in the slide. And before I conclude this presentation, I would just like to give you an indication of what was received in the large call. We had about 300 proposals for a total of 22 billion of grants. So that, and if all the projects will be awarded, the total saving in terms of tons of CO2 will be 1.2 billion, which is very, very impressive. We received applications where the largest number of applications is from the energy intensive industries. The second sector is renewables, including renewable heating and cooling, and geothermal energy. We received 58 proposals under renewables, and then we received proposals under storage and CCS. And I must say that there was a very good geographical balance. This is something that was that really pleased us not to have just a few countries submitting the proposal. And with that, I think I covered all the important points. I hope it was clear enough, and then we will discuss later. And now back to you, Javier.
Thank you very much, Susanna. Very, very interesting. I'm sure that many people have questions, and as you said, there will be a lot of opportunities through webinars and through further information to gather, to know more about this new program and to understand really how to apply for these new funding instruments. I will just give the floor to Kagri now, Kagri Yildirim, to talk about Horizon 2020. Kagri, you are there?
Yes, I am here. Hello, everyone.
Okay. Welcome to the session, and please, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much. Can you see my screen? Oh, hopefully. Yeah. Hello, everyone. This is Kagri Yildirim from. I am working for the TÜBİTAK, the Scientific and Technological Research Council of Turkey. I am Energy National Contact Point for Horizon 2020 program. I would like to thank EGEC for inviting me for this event. I am also part of the GeoRisk project, which is coordinated by EGEC also. So, but I'm here for giving the presentation on the name of the Sea Energy 2020 project, which is I will give some information. So NCP, National Contact Points, are playing a big role in Horizon 2020 calls. Each country has nominated national contact points, so they just here for the helping the entities to make them involved in the Horizon 2020 opportunities. So it's a free charge of services given by the national contact point systems. So this service, including the guidance on choosing the relevant Horizon 2020 topics, training and assistance on proposal writing, and giving the advice on administrative procedures, legal issues, and giving the assistance in partner searching. So Sea Energy project will be ended in the end of this month, because we are going to move to the new program, which is Horizon Europe. Today I am going to give some information about the Horizon Europe, which is the new framework program. So but NCP system will continue in the new program also, and there will be new NCP support projects in the future to help the stakeholders and increasing the partnership. So the Sea Energy project aims to improve the knowledge and skills of the energy NCPs, also to facilitate the transnational cooperation between the countries and NCPs. So you can see that the consortium consists of 18 beneficiary organizations from all Europe. So today, first of all, I will give the another funding opportunity, which is the Green Deal call topics. So the Green Deal, as you know, it's a policy implemented by the European Commission with the newcomer president of the European Commission. So its main aim is to actually to cut all the greenhouse gas emissions by 2025. So by 2050, 2050. So in order to do this, the Commission come up with the new investment plan. But beforehand, before the closing the Horizon 2020, the Commission would like to make additional call, which is targeted to the Green Deal activities. So they come up with the €1 billion additional budget for those activities in the area of the Green Deal priorities. What are those priorities? Of course, it's a climate change, mitigation to the climate change, energy security, secure supply and affordable energy security, the farm to fork strategy in the food area, and also the mobility areas. So I will give the information for those opportunities. So the structure of the Green Deal call reflects the 8 key European Green Deal work streams. So two horizontal areas. The main aim to increase the impact and visibility proposed actions in limited number. So those Green Deal call topics, when you compare it to the normal Horizon 2020 call topics, are actually different in regarding to the impact session. You will see the budget is higher in the Green Deal actually in the end. So as I said, there are 10 areas, identified 10 areas. Since today topics about the geothermal area, shallow geothermal area, I would like to I'm going to focus on the
Kagri, just sorry for interrupting you, but we cannot hear you anymore. We still cannot hear you, Kagri. I'm sorry, but we still cannot hear you. Maybe you can try to.
is be able to 100% of all the budget during the project, and there will be CSP project coordination support actions, which is in the area 10. So as I said, what is the differences between in Green Deal area? It's actually, it aims to produce tangible results. That's why the budget is higher. When you check the call topics, you will see that one consortium will be able to receive around the 60 million euro, for example, electrolyzer call topic. So and also the Commission would like to make it visible for the all citizens for these topics, and in a relatively short time frame. You will see that the time frame now, actually in Green Deal call topics, most of the topics about our innovation action. So that's why the impact is targeted to be higher, but there are still research innovation actions and 2 CSA projects in this call topic. So the call has been launched on 18 September 2020. So the deadline for the call applications are 26 January 2021. So we have less than 50 days for the application still. So still the application are opened. So you can submit your proposal until 26 January 2021. And the topics, the projects are estimated to start around the autumn 2021, hopefully. As I said, I am not going to cover all the core topics in Green Deal, since today's topic is about the geothermal area, the geothermal opportunities. I believe the geothermal related topics can be implemented in area 2, which is clean, affordable, secure energy. One topic under this area is about the accelerating the green transition and energy access partnership with Africa. So this topic is actually bottom up. So the main specific challenge identified is the adoption of the innovative, affordable, efficient, renewable energy solutions that will support Africa in a short time period. So the solutions are asked by the European Commission to develop the renewable energy sources, including the four off-grid communities and their integration into the existing energy system. So the second solutions can be energy efficiency. So the main important issue here, I can say, actually, let's see, let me go to the, to demonstrate the innovative, sustainable energy solutions in Africa continent. So if you have the project idea, if your project idea come to the market implementation, the Commission is asking you to implement those project ideas in Africa continent. For example, if you have the consortiums consist of the 10 partners from Europe, the Commission is asking that you should have 10 partners from the Africa also. So they are looking for the balance in the consortiums. So that's why I am saying that since it's a bottom-up approach project, so geothermal topics are open to implement for this specific topic. So the Commission just allocated 40 million euro for this call topic. So each project which is going to apply, they can get maximum 10 million euro. So from this budgetary review, I can say that maximum 4 projects will be supported, minimum 8 projects, maximum 8 projects will be supported, minimum 4 projects will be supported under this topic. So Green Deal, this is that. Okay, Green Deal has the deadline for 26th of January, but we have the upcoming opportunities, which is the biggest program. It is Horizon Europe, which is going to replace the Horizon 2020. It's a new next framework program. So here are this Horizon Europe is sustainable, fair, it aims to sustainable, fair, prosperous future for people, planet based on the European values. So as I said, the Green Deal is going to be one important component of the Horizon Europe. 35% of the budget are aimed to spend for the climate change activities. So when this program has been formulated by the European Commission, it was structured on the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. So it aims to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. Please take into consideration these policy initiatives also. Also, it aims to boosting the union's competitiveness and growth. So let's see some key figures for the program. So the 77% of the world population are from Europe, but 20% of the R&D activities budgets are spending in the Europe. So this is the Europe would like to aim to world-class research and strong industries in the world. So that's why they would like to this program to make this service actually in the end. But when you check the average R&D spending in European Union level, which is lesser than the United States, Japan, and South Korea. EU would like to increase its R&D spending to 3% in average rate. But as you know, that due to the Brexit and also COVID crisis, the budget asked by the European Commission for the Horizon Europe was around 100 billion euro. But in the end, it comes to the, still it's indecisive, still the negotiation process is going on, continue. But the latest figure shows that the estimated total budget of the Horizon Europe will be around 80 billion euro in the end. So, but as I said, that this is not established fixed amount of money, still is on the table. But as I said, 100 billion euro will not be able to achieve due to those two topics, Brexit and the COVID-19 crisis. So in Horizon Europe, as I said, that climate is one of the important tasks, but also transnational cooperation, exchange of networks, attracting the best talents are still going to be on the main core of the Horizon Europe. So Horizon Europe is not actually a big transformation from the Horizon 2020. If you remember, if you know that Horizon 2020 structured on the three-pillar system, still this structure is still same. The first pillar is about the research area, which is included research, ERC, Maris Skłodowska, Curie actions, and research infrastructure. There is no big change in this pillar. In the second pillar, there is a slighter changes. So the European Commission brought the cluster-based approach. If you remember, energy was the one thematic area during the Horizon 2020, but here energy was included in the climate and mobility cluster. So as you can see, the Commission would like to make it a more structured and coordinated approach between the sectors. So that's why they put together all the important areas here. So the health is going to be one area. Culture, creativity, and inclusive society, which is for the SSH area, will be one cluster. Civil security for society, which is civil R&D research, will be supported from here. Digital industry and space will be supported in one cluster. And food, bioeconomy, natural resources, agriculture, and environment will be another cluster. So this is the cluster based. So today I'm going to give information about the climate, energy, and mobility cluster, because all the geothermal related topics will be supported under this cluster in thematic areas. So in pillar 3, there is a new mechanism, which is the European Innovation Council, which is formerly known as the SME Phase 1-2 projects was supported as a targeted to SME areas. Now they have the European Innovation Council. So all innovative SMEs who has the innovative ideas can be supported by European Innovation Council in the end. So for the widening participation, it's going to be horizontal area. It's still same structure as the Horizon 2020. So as I said, in the pillar 1, the researchers, the excellent researchers, frontier research will be supported by the European Research Council, and they got one of the biggest budget, which is around 60.6 billion euro. For the mobility researcher activities, Maris Skłodowska Curie actions will continue, and for the main support for the research infrastructures, there will be opportunity for the calls for research infrastructure. As I said, in the clusters, there are 6 clusters. So today I am going to give about the climate, energy, and mobility. Here in climate, energy, and mobility cluster, specifically energy basic background I am going to give, not climate and mobility. For the energy areas, there will be destination 2, which is about the cross-sectoral solutions for the climate transition. In here, there will be batteries call topics, which is supported by the Batteries Europe partnership. For the smart cities, there will be communities and cities, but the call topics will be supported by Smart City Mission, also there is going to be specific partnership for the smart city projects also. So there is a big transformation for the smart city projects here. Citizens and stakeholder engagement will be supported under this destination. For the destination 3, sustainable, secure, and the competitive energy supply, there is a global leadership, renewable energy. In here, the geothermal topics will continue to be supported. All the geothermal related topics will be under this area. There will be another partnership, which is clean energy transition. All ERA-NET energy related ERA-NET topic programs will be composed of in here. Energy system grids and storage is another whole area. Carbon capture, usage and storage that will be continued to be supported by the EU. Destination 4 is about the building energy efficiency, and there will be another co-program which is for the build for people, which is aimed to energy efficient buildings. Whole topics will be supported. And again, for the high carbon related industries still be supported related to carbon related projects in industrial facilities in energy transition. As an institutionalized program, Hydrogen Europe will be one area. In here, hydrogen and the fuel cells topics will be supported in institutionalized subject. In EIT, InnoEnergy will continue to serve for the innovative projects. As I said, the build for people will be co-program project. So this is not specific and definite, still it's on the table discussion, but in order to give some idea in what in Horizon Europe related geothermal topics will be able to see, there will be one topic in 2021 for the solutions for more sustainable geothermal energy. It will aim to develop, validate innovative, sustainable, circular by design solutions that can reduce environmental impact, increase the overall circularity of geothermal energy. So this is going to be research innovation activity with around 5 million euro budget. For 2022, there will be one innovation action to demonstrate high temperature geothermal reservoirs to provide energy storage for energy system. So the budget will be around 70.5 million euro. It aims to develop, demonstrate appropriate control systems and infrastructure to manage geothermal heat electricity production. So there will be implementation in 2 different plants for this core topic. As I said, this is still not definite. There will be more opportunity in geothermal field for Horizon 2020 activities, but I just want to give some ideas and to make you visible a little bit how things are going to be in Horizon Europe. As I said, in Pillar 3, the SMEs will be able to submit their proposals under this structure, ecosystems. So in Horizon Europe, the new novelty about the Horizon Europe is about the missions. So a mission is a portfolio of action across disciplines intended to achieve bold and inspirational measurable goal. So the Commission thinks that we should give some big goal in order to make it visible for everyone. For example, journey to the Mars or etc. To make it to achieve it and to make it visible, people to understand how this is important Horizon Europe activities actually. So that's why they come up with 5 mission area. One, dealing with the cancer. The other one, to achieve soil health and food. The third one, which is related with the energy, climate neutral and smart cities. And fourth one, healthy oceans, seas, coastal and inland waters, which is decreasing the pollution on the oceans, especially dealing with the plastic issues on the ocean, and adaptation to climate change, including social transformation. So most of the topics related to this field will be supported under this mission approaches. So Still, the Commission is working on the related to coal topics to define how the mission will work, actually. Still, this is not exactly decided. And co-founded European partnership. Lastly, I'd like to mention about the co-founded partnership. So the European Union would like to establish a new approach to European partnership, because there are too many partnerships and people don't know which partnership related with their project idea or with their market are oriented. That's why the Commission is working on the simple architecture and toolbox, common set of criteria. So that's why they said that European Commission, there are 3 types of partnership. One is co-program, which is based on the Memorandum of Understanding contraction arrangements. If you would like to ask me the example from the Horizon 2020 for the co-program, it's about actually, for example, SPIRE or EEB, PPP actually in that. This is the example of the PPP programs. For the co-funded, it's about based on the joint program agreed by the partners. So those are all the ARENET related joint activities will be clustered in the co-funded program. Institutionalized are based on long-term dimension partnership with the Article 185, 187. So this is the example of Hydrogen Europe, for example. So as I said, that the European Union would like to make it higher impacts in the partnership area. I don't want to take too much time, so that's why if you have the specific question, please do not hesitate to contact with me related to the Green Deal or Horizon Europe activities. Those are my contact details. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kadrim, and for your very extensive and interesting, let's say, account for all these programs. And I think this helps us to understand where we are in terms of these new developments. And I'm sure that many people have questions. You have the chat to ask any possible question, and also we can also address them later in the next question. I will try to speed up a little bit with the time to give to the next presenter, to the next part of the session in due time. And I will talk about I don't know if you can see my screen. Do you see my screen?
Yes, we can see it, Javier.
Okay, excellent. So I will just talk about a little from our vision, from the research priorities on our sector. I have termed it geothermal heating and cooling, just to go a little bit away of the word shallow, despite the fact that our sessions are called shallow geothermal, because the vision of our sector is more and more integrative now, and we are talking really about in our panel, the geothermal panel, about heating and cooling. And despite there's also cogeneration, there are many relationships between the different technologies. So I will try to give an account in 10-12 minutes about how we see our priorities in terms of research, what have been the inputs from the geothermal panel, from our strategic research and innovation agenda to the next work programs, Work Program 2021, and our feed-in, and how we see the role of geothermal also in the future of the energy system in Europe, and what could be the importance of our sector. We have, just to remind you, this renewable heating and cooling ETIP, or technology and panel platform, in which geothermal is one of the integral parts, along with solar thermal, biomass, heat pumps, and the district heating and cooling systems, where we have also these horizontal working groups that were implemented since some years ago to take more into account what are the needs and the demand side related questions. And as you have seen in the latest development, for instance, for these missions, it is a critical part. We also see the importance of the buildings in some of these destiny that Kadrim has mentioned. So it's very, very important that we are able, as geothermal sector, to work together with other sectors, with our stakeholders of the energy system, to come up with good proposals, with good project ideas. We have in our let's say in our way of acting in these platforms. Always the mission or the essential, let's say, key question of deploying documents, the so-called strategic research and innovation agendas. And we have our latest strategic research innovation agenda for the geothermal technologies very recently released. It was indeed in September, and we discussed this within the geothermal panel. We presented our agenda, and also in the realm of the overall platform, we have also very recently in October released the strategic research and innovation agenda for the whole renewable heating and cooling sectors. So from this second one, from the more general agenda from the renewable heating and cooling sector, I would just like to highlight some, I think, very important points that give us, let's say, a landscape, an overall picture of where we are as geothermal sector, of heating and cooling sector, in the general landscape of the energy transition in Europe. So what we can see here in this graph is just how the general consumption in the energy is evolving in the EU in the last 10-11 years, and what is foreseen in the 2030 clean energy policy forecast. You can see here that what the EU foresees is that it's a growing share of the renewable heating and cooling technologies. So if we project this share to the year 2040, and let's say we could be talking about a 50% share of the clean energy of the non-fossil fuel based renewable heating and cooling technologies in the heating and cooling sector, which is a lot, which poses a lot of questions about our capacity. But in our vision, in our strategic research innovation agenda, we asked ourselves why we are not able to cover 100% of the heating and cooling sector with renewable heating and cooling. That was a little bit the approach in our SRIA, and what we saw from this approach is that we have to really speed up the deployment, the implementation of technologies which are already there. And here you can see how it is in the SRIA of the RHC. There were the mention for heat pumps, the fraction of derived heat, solar thermal, biomass. And you can see here in this 100% scenario how geothermal is a very important, a key element in this strategy. We talk about geothermal heat pumps, we talk about GeoDH, we talk about, let's say, deploying more and more the capacity of feeding district heating systems with geothermal resources. We talk about also electricity with cogeneration, and this is also linked to the deep geothermal possibilities. So what we see here in this vision is that geothermal could be a very important part, but we have to deploy it. We have challenges, so we are really not there in 2020, and we have to think about how the technology has to evolve to let's say, to come up with this ambition. So in the SRIA we really did in the SRIA of the geothermal technology, we really did a critical update of our agenda and roadmaps, looking at this new period 21-27 for the New Horizon framework, which Calvin has already mentioned in his talk. And we started in Offenburg trying to put together our authors and within the geothermal panel, and there were three main areas. We let's say we divided our SRIA, which is the technology and resources area. We also looked very more intensively into the hybridization and integration for our systems with other types of renewable technologies. And of course, due to this, let's say, more and more ambitious in the market about what are the barriers, what are the not technical topics that could be really critical to make this market uptake possible in the next years, in the next decades. So I think this was more or less and I would thank you again, the authors and the people who participated in this agenda. And this was a little bit the result. And here I won't go in much detail today because of the time and how this agenda, and I would try to encourage you just to look again into the agenda, also in view of what are the topics and the programs that are coming up now in the next years. From the introduction of the agenda, I would just like to mention two main points. One is the fact that our market, the geothermal market, is a growing market. It has grown even despite the economic crisis. And we have already 25 gigawatt thermal installed in the heating and cooling sector, with more than 300 already GeoDH districts. There are many also in planning, and also the number of shallow geothermal heat pump units is growing at the pace of 100,000 each year, and it's growing also in more than one market. So there is a more, let's say, more balanced also geographical coverage for these technologies. So we can say now that geothermal is existing overall in Europe, that we are really covering a lot of European countries now, and that there has been also a substantial increase in R&D funding. So we can see that there were spent over 300 million from funding in more than 36 EU projects, and that also essential parts of our agenda were covered in the last with this project. So we can say that it was quite successful, that this work done by the RHC in the geothermal panel to highlight what are the important aspects and the important technologies and that many of them were covered, but we can say also that there's still a lot to do. So as we can see now, there are challenges which are essential, which are important. We are far from our potential. The scalability must be achieved. The market conditions are still far from being optimal. So we are competing against cheap gas, which is really a huge barrier in the market. And there are also new challenges like what we have been seeing, like digitalization, this more intensive integration that we have been identifying in this area, and that we are trying to cope up with our proposals for new research programs that we hope came up to the Commission. So I will just talk about and try to be brief about what are these proposals. This come up from this document. We already delivered some of these topics to these to feed this first, let's say, programs in 2022 calls from this New Horizon. And as Calvin has highlighted, there are some of these ideas that are already coming up with the new calls. So first, we can talk about ground coupling technologies. So I will just go briefly here. We are still detecting the need for having more cost-efficient closed-loop technology solution with enhanced materials. We have seen several projects already dealing with materials in the shallow geothermal, not only in the shallow geothermal areas, but we still detect that there is a potential for still having there more research and more solutions. Also, the drilling is a key area here. So we can think about more robotized drilling. We can think a lot also about new installation solutions that could have also from low TRL to high TRL, let's say, grades, and that could bring us to a more fully robotized and automatized and more secure drilling solution that could dramatically help to reduce costs, which is drilling is, as you know, a very important cost factor still in our shallow geothermal technology. There was an area which was really critically highlighted by the authors of this area, which is the underground thermal storage, or in general the thermal storage question related with the underground. So we are talking about new generation underground thermal storage systems in the subsurface, also the development and planning of these solutions. We are talking about going beyond the 4 degree storage temperature, which are nowadays a limiting factor, and also talking about high temperature UTE solution and its integration in this new generation, 5th generation district heating systems, which are really in the scope of the discussion in the different programs of the Commission. The scope is to further develop and demonstrate these technologies in a higher integration scale, and for storage and recovery of heat, for instance, in aquifers, for large seasonal storage, and the ability of buffering all this heat as well for other applications. So I think this is also a thrilling area for research that we are really putting forward to the Commission to be adopted in the next work programs. If we talk about system integration, we are always talking about smart solutions, smart integrations with geothermal modeling. Planning is obviously a key factor here to optimize how this production of energy is combined with other sources, and also this question of integration with this renovation wave. So as you have seen from the talk of Kagrim, we will see more and more. We are seeing the importance of the buildings here, the building sector, which is accounting for a large proportion of the energy, let's say the energy needs that we have, let's say, more intensively to work with in our sectors to deliver solutions which are based on geothermal to be more, let's say, more marketable and more to penetrate more in the market. We highlighted the importance of the non-technical areas. Regulation, training are the first of them. We still see barriers in the market due to lack of training, lack of knowledge, lack of awareness, and we are putting forward new ideas for improved eco-friendly geothermal circular economy concepts. Let's say to use the waste energies. The geothermal green bonds, there was a very concrete solution and an idea. We put it forward in our SRIA, and also to improve, this is critical, the regulatory training and building landscape for shallow geothermal was another area we really think that should be very important for the future. So the objective here in this last area is to align technology, innovation, and the environmental legislation, regulation of the drilling, to really be able to let's say scale up all these applications in the cities, for instance, which are a very difficult area to work. Finally, we talk about the improved management and resource assessment. As we see, cities are more and more important in their planning, in their management. This detailed integration of geothermal in the planning, in the management of the city is important. There have been several projects, for instance, in the area of INER, that have dealt with these areas. We have to scale up all this, and we have to really identify methods and organizational concepts that result in a most effective and sustainable use of the subsurface as an energy space, as an energy resource in the hands of the city managers. And also, the best practices and European templates have to be spread, have to be shared in this scale, and we have to be able to generate long-term plans and climate action plans, integration of all these ideas into this management concept. So I hope I more or less was able to cope with the time, and thank you very much for your attention. And I think I now really give the floor to the second session, to this interesting, more technical session about research results actually from different projects, in which we will deal with more specifically with some breakthroughs in key areas like this life cycle assessment. So we really to deal with the question on how geothermal is really able to reduce let's say greenhouse gas emissions from the life cycle perspective. This was an area which was really dealt with in several European projects which are currently running. And what we tried with this session is to really put together the researchers, these projects which have something to say in this area, and also other interesting questions like the exergy analysis, which is very related to them, and all other best practices of EU research projects in this area. So I will give now the word to the Burkhard Sanner, who will moderate this session, and I hope this will be interesting also for all other researchers in this area.
Thank you, Javier. That's Burkhard speaking. You can't see me, but I think most anyway know who I am. Former president of EGEC. I understand we don't have a question and answer from the for the first part. So I guess, Javier, if we could just give 5 minutes or so, if Regina has questions on the first part in the chat that she feels urgent, just to have that dealt with before we start with the first presentation here. Does that make sense to you?
Regina, yes, I agree. If there's someone raising hands or the possibility to ask some of the
well, that's through the chat, and Regina will have monitored that. So if there's
Sure.
anything, Regina, that you think is important that should be dealt with now, because Susanna Cardoni,
Yes.
for instance, will not be able to be at the end of the session.
Yes, thank you very much, Burkhard. We actually have a question that was addressed to Susanna. And the question is, what is the deadline for applying for an expert position on LCA for the small scale projects call? I'm not sure if Susanna is still with us, but perfect, Susanna, there you are.
Yes, thanks for the question. We are about to create a pool of experts that will evaluate the small scale proposals. So if this person is interested in evaluating this call, I suggest that he or she submits the CV in these days, and maybe let me know so that I can take that into consideration. However, there will always be calls. DigiClima is planning to launch 2 other calls next year, and then there will be the evaluation for the second stage of the large call. So the message here is that there is really no deadline unless there is a very specific interest in evaluating proposals from this call. Then it is urgent, but otherwise it is like an open application, let's say, and we always need good and new experts. So I really encourage everyone to apply when they have time.
I
Perfect.
understand
Thank you very much.
All the details are on the website that you link in your presentation.
Indeed, all the information is on the INER web page.
Okay. Anything else, Regina?
No, Burkhard, that would be it for the time being.
So that's fine. Then we at least could answer that, and we continue now with the second part. There are several projects that contributed to that. I myself, I'm here on behalf of both GeoCOND and GEO4Civic projects to run you through this session. And the first talk will give some basic information on, let's say, the regulatory framework we are working within, to be given by Robert Gavriliuk, President of the Romanian Geo-Exchange Society and Professor at the Technical University of Bucharest in Romania. And this is, it's not written here in the agenda, but it's a part, it's coming from the GEO4Civic project and developed as a part of that. So if you can go to Robert. That looks good. And Robert, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. I'll move to presentation mode. Okay, so I'm going to speak about EU standards and regulations for shallow geothermal, and I must tell you that this is a joint work performed by Burkhard Zahner, Riccardo Pasquali, and myself, and we join efforts to conclude this synthetic presentation. The topics I'm going to cover today relate to the European norm, proposed European norm 17522, dealing with design, construction, operation, and decommissioning of borehole heat exchangers. And then I will talk about recent developments in national standards to see how this European norm relates to what happens at national level in in most of the European countries. So starting with the European norm 17522, I would like to give you some general information. This is the result of the work performed by the CEN Technical Committee 451, and the specialized working group was working group number 2, dealing with borehole heat exchangers. This group was created in February 2017. The secretariat was covered by AFNOR in France. The first draft was issued in May 2019. It was a deadline for suggestions in August 2020. The 10 national members approved the first draft by mid-August this year. And there were several meetings during the elaboration of the norm in Germany, in France, in Belgium last year. And this year, due to the well-known situation that we have all over the world due to the pandemic, all the meetings were held online on November 5th, 20th, 27th, and 1 week ago was the last meeting on the topic of this standard. The contents of the standard, as you can see, cover 12 main chapters and 4 annexes, which are informative. The chapters deal with scope, normative references, terms and definitions, symbols and abbreviations, geological and environmental aspects, system description, materials, design, construction, startup, operation, monitoring, and the maintenance and decommissioning. And in fact, the contents cover the domain, the engineering domains, which need to be very well known and mastered. These are geology, applied thermodynamics, dealing with heating, ventilation, air conditioning, and refrigeration, and also material science. So all this knowledge is covered in the 12 chapters of the standard, and the last version of the annexes provide specific information about installation of horizontal piping, examples regarding simulation time, commissioning checklist, and examples of physical data for the underground. Now, as you can see, it's quite important that this standard was elaborated at European level, because it is an attempt to standardize in the field of geological and environmental aspects, design, construction, completion, operation, monitoring, maintenance, rehabilitation, and decommissioning of borehole heat exchangers for uses of geothermal energy. So it tries to be a standard valid for all the European states, and this is quite good, because although some states which are well ahead in this field, like Germany, Sweden, also Switzerland, UK, and France, they have very well standards established. Some countries, mainly from Eastern Europe, are less fortunate with this respect, and this standard covers a very important gap with this regard. The normative references cover, as you can see, mainly topics dealing with the building services engineering and energy behavior of buildings, dealing with energy performance of buildings, heating systems, and also applied thermodynamics, like performance of the heat pump for heating and cooling, and performance of absorption heat pumps. So it has a very good grasp on fundamentals needed to be well covered when dealing with such a standard. From a perspective of mechanical engineering, which I am, I find very interesting that the standard covers also geological and environmental aspects, which need to be taken into account when drilling. The topics deal with geological and hydrogeological risks, and also anthropogenic risks, speaking about environmental influence in general, and on groundwater and the impact due to construction works. Of course, as I said, further chapters deal with system description, which has to do mainly with, let's say, the symbiosis between geology and piping. So borehole heat exchangers, horizontal piping, manifolds, and thermal plant. Material science is covered in the chapter dealing with materials. Of course, this is the chapter dealing with design, because such systems need to be properly designed in order to provide valuable results in exploitation. So care is taken with regard to sizing, the general methodology, thermal properties of the ground, thermal response test, calculation procedure, and also hydraulic design. Of course, there is the chapter dealing with construction, and this deals with applied measures for site preparation, drilling, manufacturing of borehole heat exchanger, installation, backfilling and grouting testing, and everything that has to do with proper finishing of the project in situ. Of course, there is the chapter dealing with startup, and a very interesting chapter deals with the operation, monitoring, and maintenance, because this standard specifically specifies the monitoring imperative for small systems and also for large systems, in order to be able to report the energy which comes from the underground when such ground source heat pump systems are being used. Another very important chapter deals with decommissioning, speaking about what happens when these systems have reached their lifetime. So the chapter provides information about what should be done with heat carrier fluid and the borehole heat exchangers, horizontal piping, when such a system should be decommissioned. The annexes provide further information, and of course they are informative. They show examples of applying the regulations stipulated in the standards, and give a commissioning checklist, and also physical data for the underground. So as I said, the standard was the first draft of the standard was approved by mid-August. The voting was 15 yes and 4 no. The no's came from Switzerland, Germany, Sweden, and the UK. And there is a huge amount of comments which were gathered during the consultation phase. So we have around 581 comments, and these are being discussed during the meetings of the technical committee. So far, 246 comments have been dealt with so far. The most important change that has been agreed upon is the title change. So the standard is going to be called Design and Construction of Backfield and Grouted Borehole Heat Exchangers. So the standard will not cover the completion of water-filled active loop boreholes, such as those used in basement rock conditions. For example, these are usually encountered in Sweden, for example. And this was agreed unanimously by the beginning of November. It was decision 44 taken by CENTI C451. So it was a suggestion to develop a separate standard on the non-backfilled boreholes to the initiative of the concerned countries. And this was adopted unanimously. So the open loop boreholes will be covered under the new standard in work group 1 belonging to the same technical committee, but this working group deals with the water wells. Now, further on about the consultation process, how the European standard will influence the local regulations. The text and wording in this standard will be taken into account in local regulations in order to ensure that this can be accounted for in the context of different market conditions. So the review of the standard is ongoing, and all the meetings are held online. The last scheduled meeting was last Friday, so 1 week ago, and in January next year, there are 4 more meetings planned to continue the comment review, because you can see that there are lots of comments which still need to be accounted for. Now, moving to the second topic of my presentation, and I'm going to speak about recent developments in national standards. The main contribution comes from Germany. This is the information that we have available. So Germany presents the VDI standard 4640, the thermal use of the underground, with its 6 sections. Section 1, general aspects, which is currently under the revision starting from June 2010, and the second cycle of revision has started. There is also section 2 of the standard dealing with ground source heat pumps, which was published as new version in final form in 2019, and followed by an update published in April 2020. The VDI standard section 4640, section 3 and 4, dealing with underground thermal energy systems and earth to air heat exchangers respectively, originating of September 2004, are still valid, and they are currently undergoing a process of the first revision. The section number 5 dealing with the TRT was newly published in final form in July 2020, and I will present some more information on the next slide with this regard. And section number 6, grouting materials, is under development. The committee which was assigned to work on it has started its work in October last year. Section 2 of VDI standard 4640 has the new final version achieved in June 2019. It presents a new methodology for sizing horizontal collectors and energy baskets. The new methodology for borehole heat exchanger sizing deals with generally calculation or simulation. There are some pre-calculated tables for systems up to 30 kilowatts and up to 5 borehole heat exchangers, and for very small individual ground source heat pumps up to 8 kilowatts are given simplified sizing tables. So this section of the VDI standard contains new chapter on hydraulic design and an extended chapter on installation and grouting. The section number 2 of VDI 4640 has an update sheet from April 2020, and this allows for more options beside welding or on connections at borehole heat exchanger header and near surface piping like press fittings, metal or plastic. And so it deals with the new technological developments performed in the EU-funded research project. The standard, the section number 5 of VDI standard 4640 dealing with the TRT had its final version in July 2020, and it is considered to be the most comprehensive and up-to-date guideline for TRT available up to this day. And so it is a tremendous step forward with regard to the data collection and evaluation methodology as given in the ISO standard 17628 from December 2015, and it contains 8 chapters: preliminaries, thermal response test, practical implementation, evaluation, and extended methods and measurements supplementing the TRT. Well, it is very interesting and important to speak about the influence the European standard will have on national standards. So the national standards of SEN member organizations will have to be withdrawn with regard to the topic covered by the European norm 17,522. That means design and construction of backfilled and grouted borehole heat exchangers. And the affected standards will be probably the ones from Switzerland, France, Italy, and Spain. On the other hand, national standards and guidelines by other organizations, like the ones in Germany, are not affected and can further on be used as national guidelines. And this will probably include the Austrian standard, the Swedish standard, the British standard, and the Irish standard dealing with this topic. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope I was obeying the time awarded. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Robert. Well, time was a bit over anyway, but I'd like to remind the other speakers to stick with the 15 minutes. It's not as easy as in a physical meeting to stand up and remind you to wrap up your presentations. We'll have the questions at the end. We now go to the first of the LCA tasks. It's coming from the European Heat Pump Association, kind of a sister association to EGEC. and to be given by Dan Stefanica, the research specialist within EHPA. Dan, it's yours, the floor. I can't hear you.
Thank you so much. I hope
okay.
You can hear me. I hope you can see my
fine.
screen. Well,
we see everything.
So thank you so much for that lovely introduction. Indeed, my name is Dan Stefanica. I'm the head of projects here at EHPA. EHPA is the European Heat Pump Association. Most of you probably know us, based in Brussels. You can now see on the screen our vision, which is to put heat pumps at the center of the energy system by communicating their advantages and providing relevant information to the relevant stakeholders so that our technology is adopted in the capacity that we think is needed. Our mission is that in a fully decarbonized Europe, heat pump technologies contribute as a heating and cooling solution, being a core enabler for renewable, sustainable, and smart energy systems. They are part of many renewable energy systems, along with other technologies such as microgrids, district heating and cooling. They're easy to install, and they can get coupled very easily with thermal storage, electricity storage, as well as other technologies. Now, where are we in terms of deployment? Well, I would say that by the end of 2019, as you can see, we have a total of 13,270,000 heat pump units that have been installed in 21 countries, covered in our EHPA annual market statistics report. This is again a double-digit growth compared to 20.
Sorry for interrupting you. I'm sorry for interrupting you, but we cannot see the next slide that you are presenting now. We are seeing the presentation of EHPA still.
Okay. So for me, it shows the correct one. Let me just, I don't know, let's go back.
Yeah.
So now?
We see the presentation of the EHPA, our mission and our vision.
And now?
Yes, now it's working. Perfect.
Yeah, so just give it a few seconds because I change it, and then it takes a few seconds to change for the portal itself. But thank you for telling me. So as you can see, there's a lot of growth in the sector. The most remarkable country would be France, because it's now close to a 10-year growth path and continues to be the engine for further growth, with the Netherlands declaring its goal of becoming gas-free in residential heating, the UK announcing a ban of oil and gas boilers in new buildings, Ireland putting heat pumps at the forefront of their renovation efforts. Now I hope you can also see the slide with the statistics, so you can see the growth coming from 2006 to 2019, and you can see the growth based on each type of heat pump and its application. As you can see, the growth is upwards, and it's been for the last I would say 5 years a double-digit growth. Again, these are the data for 2019, and we will get the data for 2020 in 2021. So what do we see in terms of future deployment? Because if we talk about a life cycle analysis, we want to know how this fits into the foreseen projections that we have regarding how many heat pumps do we see being installed and needed. So for us, we want to quadruple the number of installed heat pumps units per sector, particularly in renovation and industry. So that equates to somewhere around 48 million heat pumps from the ones that we have today. This process requires an in-depth analysis of the entire life cycle of the device. So this means exploring all the technology, processes, approaches in the areas, of course, of demand, design, manufacturing, installation, maintenance and operation, as well as replacement and upgrading. So how did we go about this? And I know you cannot see the writing now on the slide, but we will the next slides will show you each box separately. So basically, we've been working on this life cycle analysis for the past, I would say, 5 months since we came up with this idea of just analyzing heat pumps in such a manner. And what did we do is invited our experts from the EHPA Research and Innovation Committee, as well as our EHPA members to actually come up with the ideas, make sessions in which we discuss this life cycle and each step of it, and come up with the steps that are needed. So for example, and we'll go through them one by one, but very quickly just to give you an idea. So from the terms of demand, from the demand of the user, because this is where, let's say, it starts, but this is just, if you imagine a circle that can start wherever you want, we just chose the first one to be demand. So areas that need investigation would be the user perception of heat pumps, the communication strategy that is happening in communicating the advantages of heat pumps to the users, the different demo sites that exist, the different one-stop shops where you can get all the information related to heat pumps and their installation, including grants, for example, innovative business models, sector coupling and flexibility, where, as you can see, there are a lot of post-its added, where we also need to look at the affordability of the system. We need to look at the reliability of it. We need to look at the trust that the user has in the installers that actually install the system. Then we look after the demand. Let's say a heat pump manufacturer sees the demand, sees what this demand entails, and then they try to design the needed heat pump. Again, to also keep in mind that we see a larger deployment, we see research and the areas that are going to play a major role being modularity of components and entire systems, being circularity, the materials that the heat pump itself is made out of and how are they recycled and reused, the ease of use from a consumer standpoint, hyper efficiency, of course, easily connected to other technologies, health and ergonomics, which plays more and more major part. So health would be the noise level, ergonomics would be the compactness of the heat pump itself. Does a heat pump fit in a small apartment, for example, right? So ergonomics. Then we design the heat pump and we look at manufacturing. How are they manufactured? So, of course, use advanced computer modeling and simulations, use, of course, mass production to keep pace with the deployment. A technology would be 3D printing of certain components, integrated connectivity, of course, such as Wi-Fi, so you can get, I don't know, updates, security updates directly from the cloud, such as your phone does all the time. So, standardization of components and connectors in Europe and beyond, so we can easily standardize the devices. Supply chain resilience, which has become quite important in the situation where we are at now, and of course upgrading the skills of manufacturing personnel. Then we go to the next step. We have the device manufactured. We manufacture using new technologies. We mass produce them for the future deployment. How do we install them? What is the life cycle, let's say, of this? Well, in installation, there's a large part that has to do with skill certification and upskilling of installers. There's a lot of plug and play software and hardware. So basically the customer just wants the device to plug and then work as advertised, as you can imagine any other device. We want ease of installation, adaptability to the location and requirements. We want the user to have trust in the person that comes and installs the heat pump. We want very good, let's say, a very good user interface, as well as a lot of data coming to the user and to the heat pump installer themselves. Then we have the device installed, maintenance, right, and operation. So for a user, that would be easy to use and understand user interface, of course, so you know that everything is going okay. We need the device to be connected to the cloud, to have this possibility to be connected so that data and algorithms are optimized for its operation. We need software updates and remote diagnostics, again, such as you get in any modern smartphone or even the smart TVs nowadays, right? We want easy to understand status reporting. So you are using this much power, this is what's happening, this is what would need to change. So we basically, and we also, we're talking about maintenance as a service. So you buy the device, you basically have maintenance for free as part of a service, or the next step would be the replacement and upgrading. Because again, we want to replace the boilers, so we will replace them with heat pumps, and then in 10 years, 20 years, of course, the heat pump would need to be replaced and upgraded as well, right? So we need to look at this as heating and cooling as a service. So much in the way of leasing your car. You lease the heat pump, and then after 10 years, basically you can have several options to keep it, to get an upgrade, to donate it if you want. We're looking at integration with other technologies, of course, and the disposal and recycling strategy, which plays, of course, a major part and sometimes is overlooked. Where are our devices going? And then the circle gets, let's say, restarted. So replacement and upgrading goes to demand, goes to design, and the other steps that we discussed. So what are the future steps? We need to also look at the timelines, the funds, the projects that are already running in these areas, as well as the projects that are going to start to run. We again, of course, we involve this Research and Innovation Committee of EHPA, which I encourage you to take a look, because we're always interested in interesting stakeholders to join. And all of this research will go in the following months into the Renewable Heating and Cooling Heat Pump Technology Panel Strategic Research and Innovation agenda that we will share on the portal, and that we hope you will find useful. So thank you so much. That's all from me, and feel free to contact me after this presentation. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dan, for that information about the heat pump side. That's the one side of the ground source heat pump systems, shallow geothermal. One thing I have to mention here, you talked about France being such let's say for growth, such let's say positive example. That's the case for heat pumps, but alas, it's not for ground source heat pumps. The ground source situation in France is rather sad. So, well, but for heat pumps as such, it's fine. Let's go directly to the next speaker now. We are now hearing from Suzanne Plativi. She's from Geneva, and it's not just the state, it's a Republic of Geneva that we have here. And if you can share your screen and talk about the shallow to medium depth life cycle analysis. Can see you, but not yet your screen. Okay, there we are. Can you unmute yourself, please?
Yeah.
Okay, we hear. Fine, go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you so much. Well, good morning, and thank you so much for the opportunity to present on this European Shallow Geothermal Day. My name is Astu, and I analyze life cycle sustainability for geothermal energy systems. I am currently a PhD student in the Renewable Energy System at the University of Geneva. So what I'm going to do today is to share findings of our studies on LCA of shallow to medium depth geothermal heating and cooling networks based on the case in Geneva. Me find my right. So maybe I will start with sharing first the ambition of the Canton of Geneva, that it has an objective that by 2030 it will have reduced 60% of its carbon emission of the level of 1990. And in the light of that ambition, we just released a roadmap last week that details how the Canton will achieve this target. In the heating sector particularly, it will mean to reduce the demand, of course, but also to increase the renewable energy share in the heat mix by 80%. So two of the important axes are the district heating expansion and also to increase the use of geothermal heat. So this is where the geothermy program comes into place. It has been there for almost for a while now, maybe like 8-9 years. And the aim is to understand the geothermal potential for heating purpose, and particularly from low and medium aquifer. So that's why this is the focus of the analysis of my LCA. So at the beginning of the study, I looked at in the literature to see what has been done for all types of geothermal energy. And I found that the use of geothermal heating from aquifer, from shallow to medium aquifer, is still underrepresented in terms of LCA. And this gap looks even more significant when I compare this with the number of plants that are installed in Europe. So this has driven me further to perform an extensive LCA for such system. However, as we know it, that the use of geothermal heat from aquifer can be exploited in different ways. And in terms of district heating, it can be also exploited in different types of heating networks. So that's why I developed this matrix, basically to combine the characteristics of the geothermal resources and also the type of heating networks. So I defined 4 categories of well depths, with each with its range of temperature and flow rate. And then the depths are determined by using the temperature gradient. And also I defined 3 types of heating networks that are supplying heat at 75 degrees. So the first one is connected decentralized heat pumps. So this is where the heat pumps are installed at the houses, not close to the geothermal well. And then the second one is a centralized heat pump, which means that the heat pump is installed at near the geothermal wells, so that the distribution temperature for this kind of network is at 75 degrees. Meanwhile, for this one, it's going to be lower than 75 degrees. The third type is a district heating, and district heating and cooling is also centralized, but it works without a heat pump. And because here we assume that we will use geothermal temperature coming from medium depth, medium large depth. So to perform this LCA, of course, I need the details, right, regarding the material, the energy consumptions of different life cycle stages. So this is where I looked into different projects that are existing in Geneva and also in Switzerland. And at times those information do not exist. So I expand the research to the installations also in France. And so for each configuration, I identified 8 environmental impacts. That's what you can see here, from global warming, particulate matter, terrestrial acidification, fossil resource scarcity, mineral resource scarcity, water consumption, land use, and total energy demand. So each of the impact is quantified per megawatt of heat delivered to the user or to the houses. So now we're going to see the results. So yeah, so the positions of the values here correspond, of course, to the configuration matrix that I showed you earlier. And we're not going to look at the specific values at the moment, but we would see if there are some trends. So the first of all, maybe the first trend that we are going to see here is that there is no correlation between environmental impacts and depths. So the impacts do not vary with depth, which means that the depth is not the driver of the environmental impacts, or at least not the only driver. So that's the first one. And then the second, we observe that centralized district heating is like this area has higher environmental impacts than decentralized ones. So let's observe more about this trend. When you see the values in green boxes, these are the values that represent the configuration of the decentralized, and the right one is a centralized system. So what I observe here is that with the given depth, the impacts are smaller for the decentralized district heating than centralized district heating. And this is because in the decentralized system network, the distribution temperature of the network is lower, and that allows us to use plastic-based pipes. Whereas when we work at a centralized system, then the distribution temperature is higher, and it would necessitate the use of steel-based pipe. And further, if we look at now only the green ones, the green boxes, we also observe that a shallow system over here will have a lower impact than the very shallow system or the shallower systems. And of course, it's because the heat extracted from a shallow system has higher temperature, so that's why it will need less electricity to run the heat pump. So the difference here probably not so significant because in this study we assume geothermal electricity, Geneva electricity mix that is dominated by hydropower. So now let's leave a comparison between configurations and look at the bigger picture and how this geothermal can play a role in decarbonization, right? So, well, again, what I'm showing you here is the same information, the graph of the 8 environmental impacts. And the gray lines here represent the 6 configurations of geothermal heating network. The red line represent gas district heating, and the black one represent the oil boilers. So what we observe here is that geothermal configurations, all of them have lower environmental impacts across all impacts indicators, except for mineral resource scarcity. Well, this shows that geothermal networks is very suitable to decarbonization because they also offer more environmental advantages. However, we need to manage the mineral resource scarcity impact. All right. So now let's compare this with other renewable energy sources because ideally it has to be a mix of different resources. Again, this is the same 8 environmental impacts, and then the gray ones represent the geothermal scenarios, and the different colored lines they represent different renewable energy sources. What we observe here is that in most of the cases, the environmental impacts of geothermal networks are comparable or similar to other renewable sources such as electric heating, individual ground source heat pump, and also solar thermal. There are exceptions, though, of course, that you might have observed here when we compare them with waste incineration and individual biomass furnace. So when we compared with biomass furnace, geothermal networks have lower environmental impacts in 5 impact indicators, but it has slightly higher impact in water consumption, slightly higher impacts in total energy demand, but higher impact in mineral resource scarcity, right? And now when we compare to the impacts of waste incinerations, this is represented by the green lines over here. So we see that geothermal networks have higher environmental impacts, except when it comes to global warming impacts. So this shows the trade-off of different renewable energy sources. So the key finding of the first study that I showed you is that geothermal heating networks have lower climate change impacts and also other environmental impacts, but then the impacts of mineral resource scarcity needs to be managed. And most environmental impacts of geothermal heating networks are similar to other renewable technologies. with more differences or more differences when it comes to biomass and waste incinerations. And going back to the first thing that I said is that the decentralized connected heat pumps from shallow wells have the lowest impact compared to other geothermal network configurations. So due to time constraints, I presented the simplified results concerning only heating supply, but in our study, we also did a contribution analysis where we understand the impact of each life cycle activities and how they are different from in different configurations. We also look at the impacts on different cooling technologies, whether it is free cooling or it is with a reverse heat pump and absorption chiller. And we also looked at the impacts of the district heating if geothermal energy is used with other heating sources. And the limitation of the study, of course, here is that all the configurations were analyzed considering an electricity mix that is dominated by hydropower, which is the electricity mix in Geneva. The results will definitely change if other technology dominates the electricity mix. So that's why we did another study, but this one, it was led by the postdoc of the group, Mark Jaksa-Rosen. So we used the same model that I put in place for the first study, but now we are interested in seeing how different electricity production technology will impact the environmental performance of our geothermal configurations. However, this time we simplified the analysis by only considering three groups: decentralized heat pumps, centralized heat pump, and centralized district heating without heat pump. Bear in mind that this means supplying it from deep geothermal well or at least 75 degrees. And we compare this with the ground source heat pump environmental impacts. And we analyze what if the electricity mix is dominated by other PV, coal, hydro, or nuclear. So the electricity mix of Geneva is dominated by hydro, as I said before, and therefore the trend will look like the ones in the green boxes. So the first observation is that the trends of the impacts of the systems with other electricity mixes do not look the same. So I just give you like maybe 3 seconds to look at this, and the trends are not the same. So the first observation. The second observation is that we found that the impact of global warming and fossil resource scarcity of the geothermal systems are under those of gas and oil boilers. So these are the lines for the impacts of gas and oil boilers. So yeah, again, the impacts of global warming and fossil resource scarcity for geothermal systems are lower, except when it is supplied by a coal power plant, as you can see here, where the system that are using heat pumps have environmental impacts above gas district heating and oil boilers. So in this case, then the system that can decarbonize gas or oil-based heating, district heating, will only be those supplied by deep geothermal systems, which do not use heat pump. Of course, there are many insights, and Mark also did a lot of studies using extended uncertainty analysis, scenario discoveries, and so on and so forth. So we also analyzed what parameters with which geothermal heating networks will have the lowest impacts. So if you're interested in knowing more, you're invited to get in touch with our group. And the second limitation is that we only look at the environmental assessment, but not cost. So our other ongoing work is about life cycle cost analysis of geothermal networks, and this time also taking into account the risks of finding geothermal resources. So with this, I would like to conclude my presentation. And I would like to thank Service Industriel de Genève and also the Canton of Geneva that has funded our research under the geothermal program. So thank you so much for your attention.
Yeah, Astro, thank you very much for that very interesting presentation. And well, for me, it's a bit strange to see waste incineration included in the renewable energy sources, but that's probably something that's specific to Switzerland and the Republic of Geneva, anyway. So I have several questions to you, but I'll like to do that at the end. We continue with the presentations now. The LCA methodology from used in the GeoENVI program, to be presented by Maria Laura Parisi. Maria Laura, that's you can share your screen. I think things should work in the background now. Yeah.
Yeah, I see it.
Okay, we see.
Now you should see.
We see you, yes, but we don't see the presentation yet.
And now it should work.
There it
you
comes. Yes.
See my screen?
Thank you very much. Please go ahead. I think in 15 minutes, please.
Yes, yes. Thank you very much for the opportunity today to present the results of the GeoENVI project. This will be the topic of my presentation today. Just a couple of words to give you the reference of this project. I've been involved in the project in a consortium, which is the CSGI, working with many other partners from other Europe.
I think we lost your the sound.
European countries. I'm an associate professor at the University of Siena, and I'm an expert. Oh, okay. So I'll try to stop the video screen, just my webcam, and this should make it easier for me to present. Can you see it?
We can see it, and we can hear you better than before. I think the bandwidth was a bit restricted there.
Okay, thank you. I'll try to speak more loudly. Okay, so just a couple of words on the GeoENVI project. That is an H2020 project focused especially on the deep geothermal energy exploitation, and the activity were all focused on an effort, let's say, to guarantee that the deep geothermal energy could have played its role in Europe's future energy supply. From one side, ensuring the right methodological approach to demonstrate that this can be achieved in an increasingly sustainable way, and on the other side, trying to harmonize also all the contents and topics from the regulation point of view, considering the diversities in each European country. Okay, so in this presentation, I will especially go through the results we obtained for the proposition of LCA guidelines to perform LCA studies on geothermal systems. Well, like any energy source, the use of geothermal energy clearly has impacts on the environment. But in the case of geothermal systems, these are very highly site-specific, and this is connected with the particular nature of the source in relation to the peculiar geomineralogical phenomena. Okay, so to use geothermal energy and deep geothermal energy in a clean, sustainable, and renewable way, it is necessary to know in depth the characteristic of the source that is used, especially from an environmental point of view. Here you can see just a list, a very nutshell list of the essential elements concerning the environmental impacts of geothermal energy, geothermal systems. And another key point is that to date, the environmental impact assessment is always a prerequisite for the authorization of a geothermal plant. But this evaluation, this assessment is based on a generic approach that sometimes leads to a partial perspective of the assessment, because it is performed according to different methods and generally only considered some stage of the life cycle. So what happens is that substantially the results are not comparable among different geothermal plants and other renewable energy sources. So such limitations can be overcome with the life cycle assessment method, that is as internationally recognized, a very powerful method for assessing the environmental footprint of energy system, because it allows for investigating the advantages and the hotspots along the whole technological value chain. And so it helps in making also consistent comparison among different technologies. Well, to date, several LCA studies have been published. LCA studies on geothermal systems have been published in the literature, and the rationale of their outcomes highlight how the wide range of choices left to the LCA practitioner by the ISO 1440 family standards, which is the base, the reference base for the development of the methodology. Well, actually, this wide range of choices affects the results. And in this diagram, you can see the high variability of the performances of the power plants in terms of their carbon footprint, referred to a specific technological cluster, and in particular also among different technological clusters. Here you see that the same diagrams is split according to the different life cycle stages, and you can understand how much variability you can have when performing an LCA approach, especially if you start from different system modeling of the case studies. So in our work during the GeoMV project, we started from the structure, the methodological structure of the life cycle assessment methodology as expressed in the ISO standards, to find a way to harmonize all the approaches proposed in the literature and build a system, build a methodological approach that could be quite flexible and dynamic to describe and to represent the complexity of the geothermal power system. To do this, we worked inside the GeoMV project with a very specific target, which was to produce LCA guidelines for geothermal installations. And the motivation from where we started was to build a document to offer guidance for consistency, balance, and quality of life cycle assessment, to enhance the credibility of the findings, because this is a very important aspect, especially if we want to promote the use of geothermal energy all over Europe, and then to cover the most sensitive aspects, which means those gaps that in the ISO standards are left to the decision to be filled up with the decision of the LCA practitioner. Well, the document is clearly intended especially for LCA practitioner and geothermal experts, and the challenge was to produce a concise document ready to use. Okay, so the idea was to give a sort of guide instructions covering most of the aspects of the sensitive aspects of the LCA for energy systems in order to be used for any type of geothermal installations. The objective was to provide the guidance to establish the life cycle inventories of LCI, because one of the main drawbacks in the field of geothermal systems is the availability of data. Then to provide guidance also on the selection of the life cycle impact assessment and the impact categories indicators, and to provide guidance on how and what to document regarding the LCA studies on geothermal energy. Well, the scope was clearly the one to help LCA practitioner to have common base, a common field of exploitation for the life cycle assessment that could contribute to a sustainability assessment of geothermal projects, but without claiming to be exhaustive and exclusive. So it is something which has been conceived as a work in progress document, let's say, and there is especially, this is very important, there is also room for this kind of LCA studies to be accompanied by other environmental assessment criteria, okay, that can maybe consider in a better way the site-dependent methods of geothermal projects, or even insert inside the qualitative acceptance. So from a social, more a social point of view for the acceptance of geothermal projects. Well, the LCA guidelines are made of, is basically a document of 30 pages. This was the huge effort we tried to put in it to have a concise document. This is the link where you can find the first version of these guidelines, and is basically essentially made of an introduction, a section to explain the motivation and objective of the activity performed in GeoERA project, and then it follows the structure of the ISO standards. So it goes through the specific aspects of the geothermal energy production, and then the goal and scope, the 4 phases of the LCA structure, how to report and communicate results, and then a quite extensive list of references from which we started to perform this work. There are, at the moment, in this first version, 3 technical appendixes. The first one is a short guide how to use XRG as an allocation scheme in geothermal installations. The other one is a sort of a repository containing reference average values as a support for modeling the inventory, and this is especially referred to the effort put to fill in with data for geothermal systems. Then another appendix concerning the primary energy saving, and in the next version of the guidelines, we will also add an additional appendix demonstrating how we can perform comparisons among different renewable energies, and in particular between the geothermal heat and power versus the photovoltaic and wind power. Well, going a little bit inside in the details, this would be just a brief explanation of the main essential elements, methodological elements in these guidelines. We have extensively worked on the definition of the functional unit to be used for such kind of energy systems, and we propose 3 different possibilities. The first one concerning geothermal systems with power production only, the other one with heating and cooling production only, and the third one which is based on the multifunctional approach. Concerning the system boundaries, we focused on the core model, which is the, let's say, the essential life cycle stages of a geothermal project that mainly affect the results, the LCA results. So this is the commissioning phase, the operation and maintenance phase, and then the end of life, and considering for the upstream processes only the environmental burdens concerning the production of materials and carriers that are related with the commissioning of a geothermal power plant. lifetime, the time frame we decided for the lifetime of this technical power plant was 30 years, and so everything is referred to this time frame. Well, what about the multifunctionality? This is a very delicate point of the LCA guidelines, because we decided to divide to have two possibilities and to base them on the share between the co-products, electricity and heat. If this share is higher than 75%, then you have to go for system expansion with a substitution model for the co-products. This is a more LCA language related choice. And if the share is lower than the 75%, then you have to go for the energy content as explained in the Appendix 1. We tested these guidelines. Actually, this testing phase has just finished the last month on 6 case studies taken from the countries of the partners that are working together in the GeoEnvy project. And as you can see, they basically represent a wide selection of different technologies and different capacities for geothermal power production. And this gave us the opportunity to test the robustness of the guidelines that we had proposed in the first version of the deliverable, and the results are now published in another deliverable of the project. Hopefully, this will be much more extended in a new version of the guidelines concerning the application on those case studies. Some information about the life cycle inventory. Another big work, huge work was made to specify the materials and energy requirements to build the subsurface.
Sorry, Maria. Could I ask you to wrap up in a few minutes, please?
Yes, absolutely. And we provide in the Appendix 2 those reference values that I was telling you before, just to give the possibility to the practitioner to use some proxies in order to fit with the life cycle inventory that is building for the specific geothermal project. And another important element is the selection we made for the life cycle impact assessment method, which is based on the environmental footprint version 3 just released by the Joint Research Center. So we tried to be in line with the progress made by the JRC in the field of LCIA calculation methods publication. And our choices were used to decide which was the level of robustness and the level of priority for each environmental impact categories. So this is the choice that the GeoEnvy consortium made on this kind of impact assessment method. And this is just the list of the priority 1 impact categories that we selected. And this is a point on which some improvement will be released in the second version of the LCA guidelines. And this is the last slide. Some additional covered aspects in the guidelines. There are some pitfall in the LCA calculation method, impact assessment calculation method, concerning especially the inorganic emissions. So we suggest to report always about this kind of direct emissions from the geothermal projects. We suggest to use also additional metrics, and then there is a section, an extensive sections specifying how to report and communicate the results of the LCA. If you want to have some more information, you can write me. You can go on the GeoEnvy website, where there is a dedicated platform for the LCA for geothermal system, and these are just the references to the two deliverables already published and available publicly to get more information about the very brief descriptions I gave you now. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Maria Laura, for your interesting presentation. And before I ask the next speaker, already to take over at least the screen in the moment, I'd like to mention there is all these different aspects of the life cycle assessment. You look mainly in the environmental side. Cost was mentioned at least in the one before, and we'll now look at the energy side more with the energy and exegetic analysis. And we'll hear from Sanover Hassan Katak, who is at the University of Bath. And he, I can't see your screen yet, but we'll see it in a moment. Yeah, he did these kind of exegetic calculations for the GeoCOND project. Sanover, the floor is yours. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Burkhard, for the introduction. Yes, first let me introduce myself. I'm Sanover Khatak. As he said, I'm a research associate at Bath University, the UK, and also a lecturer at De Montfort University. While my name is only there, actually this work was done in collaboration with all the colleagues on the GeoCOND project, which includes Burkhard and Javier, and also work was taken from some other deliverables which had worked from other people on the project. So while my name is only there, it's really a group work what this results are. Then the focus of this presentation is on the energy performance on the operational phase within the LCA whole story. And we saw in the second last presentation, I don't know if anybody noticed, the most red block in that whole picture was for energy consumption, right? And in terms of environmental impact. And when you talk about energy use, it's mainly the operational phase, which is responsible for the environmental impact in terms of energy emission, in terms of energy use. So that's why it's very important to understand and analyze the performance and how it uses energy, because it translates to inputs into life cycle analysis and also into cost feasibility. So I will move on to the next slide. Yeah. So the objective is to analyze the improvements in the ground source heat pump and VHE performance available from using the GeoCOND product. So we use the improved materials developed in the GeoCOND project and to see how they perform. And the thermodynamic assessment is done of the BHE borehole heat exchanger using exergy analysis of a typical residential house, a typical European residential house, using a software modeling approach. Why did we consider exergy? Well, because there are a couple of advantages. Don't be thrown off by the word exergy. It's simply when we talk about energy and we include the qualitative aspects of energy, then that's basically exergy in a nutshell. For example, if we have a kilowatt hour of electricity and a kilowatt hour of warm air, they may have the same quantity, but qualitatively they're very different. And so this quantity exergy includes this qualitative aspect. So if you were to calculate the exergy content of electricity, it would be, and the exergy content of warm air, for the same quantity of energy, the exergy would be much lower for the warm air. So it also depends upon what kind of energy it is, not just how much it is. So that's a good advantage of using exergy analysis, which is done in in coordination and in parallel. It builds upon the energy analysis really. It's sensitive to temperature fluctuations, which is also useful when we're looking at thermal energy supplied to a building. It's important to know that if there is certain energy demand being supplied to a building, how useful it is also linked to what outdoor conditions are. And the metrics that we've used to analyze are the XAG efficiency, which ranges from 0 to 100%. Again, in comparison with COP, this is a slight advantage because it gives us an idea of theoretical maximum theoretical maximum efficiency of the system. And then BHE XAG extraction is really how much XAG is extracted from the borehole heat exchanger. Within the whole life cycle, I will not go into details of the life cycle stages. I think the previous presentations did that very well. The main focus of this work is the use phase or the operational phase. And as I said, the analysis of which is done using XAG, and XAG efficiency requires the modeling of the building itself and the flows and modeling of the heat flow in the BHE. So what is the main aim? The main was defined as if we keep the building location heat pump the same, we need to investigate how the GeoCOND products would perform in comparison with the state-of-the-art products. More specifically, the baseline uses state-of-the-art materials for BHE construction. The pipe with a value of 0.42 watt per meter Kelvin, and thermal conductivity for the grout to be 2 watts per meter Kelvin. Improvements in the GeoCOND project over the pipe was to increase it from 0.42 to 1 watts per meter Kelvin, and for the grout was to increase 2 watts per meter Kelvin to 3 watts per meter Kelvin. So essentially, with these improved values, how does our BHE and the ground source heat pump system perform is what we're trying to find in this study. The methodology is a typical building was modeled in Design Builder, which is building energy modeling software, and for a typical building in Europe, from which a demand curve or a load curve or a demand profile for Stockholm was generated. Stockholm was selected as a representative city, and we can see that the red that you see in that plot corresponds to the heating demand. So that's sensible because majority of the demand in Stockholm would be for heating. And then a secondary software was used, the Earth Energy Designer, to model the thermal response of the BHE. And once that was done, an iterative loop was used to arrive at a suitable COP for the ground source heat pump system. Once that was done, then the input from the building energy modeling and the BHE modeling was fed into the XAG analysis to generate our results. So with this methodology, the first step was indeed the generation of the load curve, which we see over here. Give a second to a slide to update. Yeah. So this is the, we can see that for Stockholm, the heating demand dominates, and these values were, the model was validated against previous published data from a European project on how a typical European house behaves in terms of its cooling and heating demand. So we used a validated model in terms of energy use per meter square. The BHE that was used, there were different BHEs used. One example here is that of 2 times 107 meters. So the information is there in this table, but the results of this BHE configuration was this. If you look at this figure, it vanished. So I'm going to put on the laser pointer to just indicate something. So what we have is 3 profiles over here. We've got the standard, then the GeoCOND grout but standard pipe, and then the full GeoCOND. The lightest color corresponds to the full GeoCOND case, whereas the darkest color corresponds to standard case. And from this figure, we can see that for the full GeoCOND case, a higher temperature profile was developed in the BHE. So it's a good visual representation that using the GeoCOND materials have elevated the temperature that's developed within the fluid of the BHE, right? So and that's basically why the efficiency of or why greater amount of energy or XHE would be extracted from the BHE. So in total for Stockholm, these two configurations were analyzed. So the second one is a single U2 with a deeper depth of 190 meters. And I won't go through the numbers in this table. I have plots to follow this table. But one thing you can see here that the energy demand is for the whole year is this amount, which is 17,833, while XHE demand is 1166, right? So we can see clearly that the XHE value is much smaller, and that's because the energy that we're supplying to the building in terms of heating, it's low-grade energy. So it's a large quantity of energy, but we're supplying low-grade energy to it. It's basically thermal energy at a little variation from the environmental temperature, right? So that's important to note. Then the energy in XHE extracted from the BHE was looked at, and for energy results, the BHE energy extraction was around 75%, but in terms of XHE, it was only 20% of the total XHE required. So so that's basically as a percentage of how much XHE could be extracted from the BHE. And you can see in these two configurations that from the baseline to the full GeoCOND case, what we have is an improvement of about 2.5% in the first configuration, while in the deeper configuration, we've got the percentage of total BHE extraction. It's increased from 28.56 to 32.25. So a marked increase, basically. So the same results in terms of figures. Slides are stuck. Yeah. So these are the same results for BHE XHE extraction and then ground source heat pump XHE efficiency. For the BHE XHE extraction, we can see that in all cases, the GeoCOND materials have actually increased the amount of XHE extracted from the borehole. And this is about, on average, about almost 13% for both the designs, right? However, the XHE efficiency of the ground source heat pump is more or less statistically not different, really. And the reason for that is that we are using electricity, which is a high quality energy, to fulfill a low quality demand. So there is bad matching between energy supply and energy demand, and that is not the fault of how the BHE performs or something. It's basically, it is how the requirement of the building is. So unless we are able to reduce the supply energy quality, the XHE efficiencies are going to remain low, which is around 25% in this case. Yeah, then the XHE efficiency and the BHE XHE extraction are both very sensitive to the outdoor air conditions. We can see the green profile over here is that of the outdoor dry bulb temperature, while the red one is the BHE XHE extracted, both being averaged over 24 hours, so that we can see what's going on better in terms of the trend the profiles. And without going into depth, one can notice that as the temperature of the outside drops, RHC, BHC, EGEC extraction rate can actually increase, right? So so it's the EGEC efficiency, it's like 25%, because it could improve if we have more variation between the thermal energy extracted from the BHE and what we're supplying. If there's a greater difference between the outdoor air temperature and the temperature of the energy flow that we are supplying to the building or extracted from the BHE. And yeah, so this is a plot for EGEC efficiency. Similar story can be seen over here, that when the temperature is lower on the outside, which is the green curve in this case, the EGEC efficiency is comparatively higher. And then the reason why this inverse relationship exists is because because of the way we calculate the EGEC. So in conclusions, the GeoCOND products, in our study, at least the simulation-based approach for a typical residential building, and they have potential to improve BHE EGEC extraction by about 13%. But this may be variable depending on the load curve, which is linked to what kind of building we have and what kind of weather there is, and how much the BHE is utilized. So if you have a sort of a bit of an oversized system, then in that case we might have comparatively lesser improvement shown in the results, which is actually, in this case, we have designed a system to fulfill all the heating and cooling requirements of the building. So if it is to maybe fulfill part of the requirements and have some kind of a backup system, the improvement might be bigger than 13%. But having said that, in the system as a whole, coupling the building demand with the ground source heat pump, it seems that the greatest thermodynamic loss is because of the conversion in energy quality from electricity to low-grade thermal energy supply. So that's basically about 3/4 of the energy EGEC is lost simply because of this mismatching between supply and demand energy. So what we did was, in this analysis, we used hourly data for basically a whole year, and the representative year was chosen as the 11th year of the ground source heat pump operation. So steady conditions could be achieved, and so it would be acceptable, more technically speaking, and the results were also based on hourly data. So it gave a good detailed analysis of the energy requirements and the EGEC efficiency or the performance of the heat pump. So something like this would now feed into the life cycle analysis, which is basically a coupled work package within the GeoCOND project, which is still underway. The deliverable on this has been completed. I think I forgot, Javier Barcard may confirm. I think it's a publicly available deliverable, but we're also in the process of publishing it as a research paper. So these results you could access in a couple of months' time through the research paper as well. So that's all. I hope I've stuck to the time. That's my contact there. If anybody wants to communicate regarding this, even after the presentation, you are most welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sanover. We have several questions already from the chat, and I think we can, even if we are a bit behind schedule time, have some 10 minutes or so to answer the most important ones. I'd like to go back to the presentation by Robert Gavrilyuk. The question here is there anything in the standards, I assume, about interferences between projects, the global management of the underground resource? It's also a larger life cycle issue, it states here. So question is there anything said about the interference? Personally, I know that at least the new Swiss standard will address that, but is there anything in EN 17522, Robert?
As far as I know, there is no specification about that.
Okay, but it's an issue in the areas where there is sorry, already a large use, like in Switzerland, and I know that also Sweden, Germany is somehow dealing with that, but standardization is not as close yet.
No. SUBSI has this is a university in Switzerland and a partner in Geo4Civic project, and they developed a software allowing to calculate the interference between geothermal systems, but it's not implemented in the European standard.
Not in the standards. I know in the Netherlands it's already also an issue, and if somebody is interested, on the 9th, in the second day of the Shallow Geothermal Days, there was a presentation on that should be online available. I have not checked yet, but it should be online now. Then questions to Astu for the Geneva project. The one thing is that, well, it's a more complex question. I like to, I'm not sure if you can read it or if Regina had sent it to you. Maybe she can do so, that it might be easier, but I'll read it anyway for everybody. Does anyone know the percentage of difference in embodied carbon between the decentralized ground source heat pump at the building level in the fifth generation district heating versus centralized ground source heat pump in fourth generation district heating? It seemed that selling a lot more components means a lot more carbon, but makes a great throwaway business model. So the question mainly, is there more carbon embodied in the whole system if you have the heat pumps in the individual houses, or if you supply it from a centralized place? Was that looked at? We don't hear you. You have to unmute you. You are still muted. I cannot do anything about that.
Now I think you can hear me.
Okay, yes, okay. We hear you.
Great. So the question would be, so now we want to have district heating and then comparing it with the individual system and how that looks like, right?
Yeah.
I think that's
in operational terms, but in the terms of embedded carbon in the installation, I understand.
Yes.
And the components.
So I do not have the information on top of my head, but that is in the study. Basically, we divided the contributions of different life cycle stages into the numbers of the impacts. So when you go into the study, you can see how much of the percentage of CO2, for example, actually goes into the network or goes into the well or goes into the equipment itself. So in that sense, then, for example, I would imagine the use of individual heating, for example, will not necessitate a network. Then we will see the percentage of how much we can actually lift out of there. But then the thing that we cannot answer straightforwardly is because with heating network, we can have more heat produced by one single installation. And that is something that we have to calculate differently to have the specific answer. Maybe that answers the question.
Yeah, thank you. And there is another one to you, but for that, I'd like to say first that I'm quite happy. I was quite happy when I saw that all the decentralized systems were the most positive one, the best ones in terms of emissions there, or of footprint. But then I saw it was all done on the Geneva electricity, which is a lot of hydropower.
Yeah.
So one question is here, how did you take into account the environmental impact of electricity used? I think with hydropower it's not too much, but could you answer that question? How did you take it into account? And my follow-up to that, did you look at different alternatives? You showed quickly these other project looking at different generation methodologies, but would it be, or do you have an idea if you would get similar results if you take, for instance, the average European electricity production?
So to answer this first question, I just want to confirm that decentralized heating is, means it's still in the network, but the heat pumps are connected decentralizedly. So yeah.
But by the way, we had presented, or I myself had presented on Wednesday such an example. You shall find that on the website of the Shallow Geothermal Days. So it's quite, I think, quite promising and well sought after solution at this moment.
Great to hear that there is a synergy there. So for the second question, with regards to different electricity mix, for example, so the difference with different electricity mix is lower. We see, for example, let's take a greenhouse gas emission. Then if we have an electricity mix that has higher greenhouse gas emission, then the gap between decentralized and centralized will become smaller, because the contribution of the CO2 does not really come again from the network, but mostly from the electricity production. So that the benefit will be smaller than if, for example, we exploit the system with nuclear, for example, where the CO2 is smaller. But then again, we have, I think, in my personal opinion, we have to look at different environmental impacts. Yeah. So when we talk about CO2, then yeah, we see these differences, and yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. We cannot have all the questions answered yet, but I'd like to take one other more here. This was, here is it. This is for Maria Laura. This is more for the deep geothermal in this case. Do you consider the induced seismicity in the life cycle assessment? An important question in the light of the recent developments in Strasbourg in the Wandenheim plan, where they had to stop it because of induced seismicity. Maria, was that considered? Maria Laura, I see that you are still on here, but you have unmuted your microphone. No, you have muted your microphone. You have to unmute it. Okay, then for that moment, we should go to another question for the moment. Maybe Maria comes up later on. A question for her. Or Regina, do you want to say something? No.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, very. Well, if you could go closer to the microphone, maybe.
I'm playing with two microphones because I'm on another conference. It's Philippe Dumas from EGEC, coordinator of GeoENV. Seismicity is not covered in the LTA. We speak about emissions.
Okay, thank you, and good to hear from you, Philippe. Then I have a question to Javier. Javier, you mentioned robotization of drillings. Are there actually works on this? I reckon it's not just robotization. It doesn't necessarily mean autonomous drilling, but let's say, supported or drilling.
Yeah.
Javier, what about robotization of drilling?
Yes, this idea came up in the discussions of the SRIA. So there was the, let's say, the idea, let's say, the drilling is always an enormous cost factor here for shallow geothermal. So we always have the problem of the capex, which is a barrier here. And the question is to see how we can, let's say, make drilling more economic, more safe, more secure. And so the idea is to, let's say, go deeper into the questions of more autonomous, more automatic, or even in the far future, more robotized drilling. So this was the rationale of all this idea.
Yeah, thank you very much, Javier. And one final one to Sanober. Did you keep the borehole depth the same when you changed YouTube and grout conductivities?
Yes, absolutely. Otherwise, they would not be comparable.
Okay, that's it. Thank you very much. There are a few more questions. Maybe the speakers can answer them directly in the chat if Regina sends the questions to you. And I'll hand now over back to Javier for the closing remarks.
Thank you very much, Burkhard, for this, for your managing the session and the very interesting handling of the questions and answers. So as I've seen, there is a lot of interest here in these technical questions, and so I'm really happy that we have satisfied, let's say, the demand for more technical information, for looking at where we are in terms of these questions about CO2 emissions, exergy, energy questions related with geothermal. Also, the very interesting session about the norms and standards, which is a very critical area. So I think, for my feeling, we have had a session of very high technical quality, and so I hope that let's say we can really say that that we are advancing, that the different European projects that has been around and that are still growing around are helping us to make geothermal heat, geothermal energy more attractive, more market, more close to the market, also more economic. And thank you very much for all of you for your attendance. I'm sorry for this slight delay in the timing, but I think the interest of the session may be a good argument for that. So thank you very much and keep safe.
Also, on behalf of EGEC, we would like to thank all of the speakers that took their time and participated in today's session. And we wish you all a good day, and don't hesitate to access our website for the upload of this session. Thank you all.
Thank you, Regina, especially also for the EGEC team for this extraordinary management.
Thank you, Javier. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thank you for this session. Keep safe.
Hi, Robert. Goodbye.
Bye. Thank you.